should have pulled away. That's what a good woman would have done. But I didn't. His hand rested gently on my hip. Not forceful, not even suggestive, just there, warm, solid, still. And that stillness wrecked me more than any kiss could have. The room was dim, lit only by the amber flicker from the hallway nightlight. I remember the silence, how it wasn't really silent at all. The hum of the fridge, a distant shower from upstairs, and his breath, close, rhythmic, steady. Mine was not. I was wearing a cotton robe, thin from years of washes. Underneath, just skin. He stood behind me, one hand still on the counter from where he'd reached past me for a glass. The other, the one on my hip, hadn't moved. Neither had I. I could feel him without even turning. The heat from his chest, the faint scent of sandalwood and laundry detergent. That specific male scent women pretend not to notice when they shouldn't notice. But I noticed. My lips were parted slightly. I don't remember opening them. I think I was breathing through my mouth just to stay quiet. He didn't speak. I didn't either. But everything in the air said, this is wrong. And yet nothing in me pulled away. I'm 42. I've been with his father for almost a decade. We're not married. Never needed to be. We shared a home. Bills, routines. The occasional late-night shoulder rubs that never turned into anything else. He's 26. Jake, my partner's son from a previous relationship. He moved in just for a few weeks after a breakup and a job transfer. And now here we were, in the kitchen, midnight, me in a robe, him shirtless, water glass in hand, and that one hand on my hip like it belonged there. What would you do if the only man who made you feel alive again was your partner's son? My breath caught when he finally spoke. Just 3 words, barely audible. You okay, Sarah? God. My name in his voice. It wasn't a question. It was an anchor. A test. Maybe even permission to say no, to stop this. But I couldn't say anything. He didn't move his hand. I didn't move my body. Our bodies had already answered for us. The dishwasher clicked. My fingers tensed on the counter's edge. My skin burned, not from touch, but from anticipation. And still I didn't step away. His hand slid away, slow, careful, like he knew what it had done to me, like he felt it too. I stood there, staring at the sink, pretending to breathe normally while everything inside me unraveled. I could still feel the outline of his fingers, the phantom weight of his palm against the bone of my hip. That heat hadn't left. He didn't say anything else. He just stepped back, turned off the faucet, and walked away, barefoot, quiet, like he hadn't just broken something inside me that could never be fixed. No drama, no confession, just silence. But silence can be loud, because the moment he left the room, I pressed my hand to where his had been, and I shivered. I stood there for what felt like hours, not because I was scared, because I didn't trust myself. That wasn't me. I'm not the woman who flirts with younger men. I don't lean into moments like that, not even accidental ones. I'm composed, loyal, predictable. But then again, I've been predictable for so long, I started to feel invisible in my own home. And maybe that's worse. Jake had always been polite, not flirtatious, not inappropriate. If anything, he treated me more gently than his father ever did. He noticed things, like when I wore new earrings, or when I made tea late at night and tried not to make noise. There was something in his eyes when he looked at me. Not hunger, not lust. Something softer. A question he never asked out loud. But tonight, in that one moment, his hand had asked. And my silence answered. Later that night, I lay in bed next to his father, my partner. He was snoring softly, one arm thrown over his side of the bed, mouth slightly open. We hadn't touched in over a month. I stared at the ceiling, feeling like a stranger in my own life, not because of what Jake did, but because of what I didn't do. I didn't flinch. I didn't say no. I didn't move away. And now I couldn't stop thinking about it. Not just the touch, but how I had let it stay, how my breath caught, how my robe slipped a little too low when I turned, how I wondered if he noticed. Of course he did. He's a man, and I'm still a woman, one who needed to feel seen, even if just for a second. I whispered into the dark. This wasn't the woman I thought I was, but it was. And now, I didn't know how to go back. Before Jake moved in, the house was quiet, but not the comforting kind of quiet, not the peaceful hush after a long day. No, this was the heavy kind, the kind where footsteps echo too loud, where every clink of a spoon sounds like a question no one's answering. We'd become strangers, his father and I, two people in the same house, sharing groceries, laundry, and silence. He used to reach for my hand under the dinner table. Now he reached for his phone. Even on nights we tried to make an effort. A movie, takeout, the occasional dinner with wine. It felt performative, like we were acting out a version of love that no longer existed. I remember the first time Jake showed up with his duffel bag. He knocked like a guest. When I opened the door, I was taken off guard, not because I didn't recognize him, but because I almost didn't. He wasn't the skinny college kid anymore. His shoulders were broader, his voice deeper. There was a quiet steadiness in how he carried himself. He smiled when I opened the door. That soft, crooked grin, like he wasn't sure if he should be happy or sorry for being there. "Hey, Sarah," he said. "Thanks for letting me crash here for a bit." And then he hugged me. I wasn't ready for that hug. It wasn't romantic. Not then. It was warm, familiar, a little tight. But when his arms wrapped around me, I realized how long it had been since anyone held me like they meant it. My partner and I hadn't embraced like that in, I don't know how long, a year, maybe more. Jake smelled like wind and aftershave, and something new. And when he pulled back, I had to turn away. Not because I felt something wrong, but because I felt something I didn't know how to name yet. He stayed in the spare bedroom. He kept his space clean, did his own laundry, even offered to help around the house, which was more than I could say for his father. He called me Sarah, never Mom, never anything forced. He knew the line, he never crossed it. Not then. But he noticed me. That's what started it. The noticing. One morning, I was in the kitchen in an old tank top, hair a mess, no makeup. I hadn't slept. I'd been crying the night before, over nothing and everything. Jake walked in. He paused, just for a moment, then smiled. "You look peaceful," he said softly. Peaceful. That word stuck in my chest like a warm stone, because I wasn't. I was hollowed out, raw. But the fact that he saw something soft in me, even then, meant more than I can explain. That's when it started. Not an affair, not desire, just attention. Gentle, effortless, consistent attention. He'd ask how I was. He'd clear the dishes. He'd compliment the dinner. Not just say thanks, but actually notice the lemon zest or the way I seared the chicken. And somewhere in all of that, between grocery lists and loading the dishwasher, I started to feel again. I started wearing earrings again. Not the fancy ones, just the little gold hoops that used to make me feel feminine in the most subtle way, the ones my partner never commented on. But Jake noticed. Every time. "You always wear those when you're in a good mood," he said one morning, leaning against the doorway while I stirred eggs. I didn't know how to respond, because I wasn't in a good mood. I was just trying to feel like someone again. The shift was slow. There was no single day when everything changed. It was the accumulation of little moments. like the way he handed me a mug of tea and our fingers brushed, or the way he'd look at me when I laughed, like he hadn't heard anything that beautiful in a long time. One afternoon, I was folding laundry and he passed by the open door. "Need help?" he asked, and before I could say no, he was beside me, picking up my husband's shirts. I watched his hands, gentle, capable, unbothered. And then I realized I wasn't watching his hands, I was watching him. The way the muscles in his forearms moved, the way the curve of his jaw flexed when he concentrated. And when he looked at me, really looked, something shifted in my stomach. It wasn't just attention anymore, it was awareness, mutual and terrifying. One night, his father got home late. He didn't kiss me, didn't even touch my back as he passed me at the sink. I looked over at Jake, sitting at the counter. He raised an eyebrow, like he could feel the sting of it too. That night, I stood outside Jake's door longer than I should have. I didn't knock, didn't open it, but I was there, and I knew he knew. I told myself it was just loneliness, that I wasn't attracted to him, not really, that it was just the attention, the novelty, the contrast. But even that was a lie, because I'd started dreaming about his voice, about the way he'd say my name, slow, almost reverent. And worse, I'd started waiting to hear it. There was this moment, a small one, that still plays in my head. I was wiping down the table. Jake was rinsing a plate. He looked over, eyes soft, lips slightly parted, and said, "You okay today?" Not "how are you?" Not "everything good?" But "you okay today?" Like he already knew I wasn't, like he could see through the makeup and polite smiles and years of holding it all together. And I felt my breath catch. I nodded. But inside, something whispered, "If you keep letting this happen, it won't stop here." And I didn't stop it. The first time I realized I was letting him linger too long was on a Tuesday. It was late afternoon. Golden light poured through the kitchen window, the air thick with the smell of rosemary chicken. Jake had stayed home that day. He said he wasn't feeling great, but he didn't look sick. He looked present, rested, and comfortable in a way his father never was. Sleeves rolled up, barefoot on the tile, sipping iced tea he made himself. We were alone. His father wouldn't be home for hours. I stood at the counter, chopping vegetables. He leaned against the fridge, arms crossed, watching. Not in a lazy way, not even flirtatious. Just focused. Like I was something worth studying. "You always cut peppers like that?" he asked. I looked up. "Like what?" He walked closer. "Precise, like you're solving something instead of making dinner." I laughed, quiet, uncertain. He stepped beside me and reached for a knife. Our shoulders brushed. I didn't move away. He sliced the next pepper for me, slowly. "I like the way you do things," he murmured, and I stopped breathing. He didn't look at me when he said it. That's what made it worse. It wasn't a line. It was a confession that slipped out too easily. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, my fingers shaking slightly, and walked to the sink. He followed. Close, too close. And then, his voice again, lower this time. "You always seem sad when you're cooking." That broke something in me, because no one else had noticed. Not my friends, not his father, not even me, but he had. I turned just slightly, and our faces were barely a breath apart. I could see the flecks of green in his eyes, the tiny scar near his temple, the way his lips parted when I didn't answer. We stood like that, saying nothing, for far too long. Long enough that the rice started to burn, long enough that my pulse felt like it was thudding against my skin. And still, I didn't step away. Later that evening, when his father came home, Jake vanished into his room, and I couldn't focus on anything my partner said, because all I could think about was how close I'd let Jake stand, how natural it felt, how I hadn't even noticed how wrong it was, not in the moment. I couldn't stop picturing it. His eyes, his voice, that flicker of something between us that neither of us dared name. That night, I sat on the patio long after dinner, a half-finished glass of wine in my hand, the crickets chirping, the breeze brushing my bare arms, but all I could hear was his voice. The way he said my name, the weight of it, not playful, not formal, but careful, like he was holding it in his mouth and didn't want to drop it. I replayed that moment by the counter over and over, not just what he said, but how I didn't flinch, didn't stop him, didn't act like a woman who knew the rules, because I didn't want to. When I went inside, the house was dark. My partner was already upstairs, lights off. Jake's door was cracked open, a soft glow from his lamp spilling into the hallway. I hesitated, a long, pregnant pause. Then I walked past. But before I reached my bedroom, I heard him. "Good night, Sarah," he called, quietly. My name again, and I turned. He was leaning on his doorway, arms crossed, bare feet. A grey t-shirt that hung just loose enough to show the slope of his collarbone. He smiled. Not wide, not flirty, just warm. I swallowed. My voice didn't work at first. "Good night, Jake," I whispered. I didn't move, neither did he. And that was the moment I knew. We were already past the line. Our bodies hadn't touched since that night in the kitchen, not really. But something had. Something invisible. Something irreversible. The next morning, I found excuses to pass by him. I pretended to need help with the water heater. He crouched next to me in the small laundry room, flashlight in hand. His arm brushed against mine once. I didn't flinch. I don't think I even blinked. The space between us had become charged, a kind of gravity I couldn't control. Like every time we spoke, we were inching closer to something we couldn't undo. That evening, his father asked me if I was okay, for the first time in weeks. I said I was just tired. He nodded and went back to his phone, but Jake looked at me across the table, and that look held more concern than the words ever could. Later, I cried in the shower, not because I felt guilty, but because I didn't. The house is quiet again, but this time it's different. This time, I'm the one who asked for it. My partner left an hour ago. Business dinner. He kissed my cheek, dry, distracted, then reminded me to water the basil. Jake is in the living room. I'm in the kitchen, pretending to clean an already clean counter. My fingers tremble just slightly. Even though I'm telling myself I'm calm, I'm not calm. I'm breathing too hard. My pulse is too loud. And I keep replaying last night. The way Jake's hand brushed mine when he passed the salt. The way neither of us apologized. The way he didn't look away. He's humming. Some song I don't recognize. Low and warm. Barely above a whisper. It reaches into the kitchen like a hand I can't see. I dry my hands and walk toward the sound. He's sitting on the couch, legs stretched out, a book open in his lap. He looks up when he sees me, not startled, not expectant, just present. "Sarah," he says. My name is softer in his mouth than it's ever been. I sit down beside him, close, too close, but not touching. The air between us feels electric. That stillness before lightning. I can smell the laundry soap on his shirt. I can hear the ticking of the wall clock and the rise and fall of his breath. He turns toward me, just slightly. His voice is almost a whisper. "You okay?" I nod, I think, but my voice fails me, so he waits. Jake doesn't move closer. He doesn't push. He just waits. Like he knows that I have to be the one to close the space. And I do. I reach for his hand. The moment our fingers touch, something cracks open in me, like a dam I've held for years just gave up. My breath hitches. He hears it. His eyes don't leave mine. I trace my thumb across his knuckles. Slow, nervous, aching. Then his hand tightens just a little around mine. And still, he waits. "Tell me to go," Hen says, barely audible. His voice is low, rough, like gravel softened by water. I should say it, but the words won't come. Because I don't want him to go. Not tonight. Not after all this time of being untouched, unheld, unseen. I shake my head, just barely, and that's all he needs. He leans in, so slow I could stop it if I wanted to. But I don't. His lips hover near mine, not touching, just there. My skin prickles. My mouth is dry. My chest feels too tight. And then, just as I close the space, we hear the front gate slam. We both freeze. His hand slips from mine, and we spring apart like teenagers. But no one enters. Just the wind. Still, the moment is broken. He looks at me, breathing hard. I feel heat rise in my chest. Not embarrassment. Something deeper. Longing. Regret. Need. He whispers, "I'm not sorry." I don't say anything. Because I'm not either. The wind settles. The silence returns. But we don't move. He's still sitting across from me, eyes steady, lips parted like he's holding something back. And I'm shaking. Not from fear, from what's already decided. I stand first. The robe I'm wearing is tied loosely at the waist. It slips slightly off one shoulder as I move, but I don't fix it. He notices. I see it in the shift of his jaw, the way his breath catches, the way he looks at me like I'm something he's been holding himself back from for too long. I walk toward him slowly, each step loud against the hardwood floor. His eyes never leave mine. "I can't," I whisper, but I keep walking, and he doesn't move. "I shouldn't," I add, voice cracking now, but I'm standing right in front of him. He's sitting on the couch, still, like he's waiting for me to take it all back. But I won't, because everything in me aches. My skin feels too tight, my chest too hollow. I want to feel something that reminds me I'm still a woman. He reaches up. His fingers touch the side of my thigh, gently, like a question. I don't answer with words. I just place my hand over his and guide it higher. His arms wrap around my waist slowly, and he pulls me down onto his lap. My robe parts slightly. His hands are warm on my back. My cheek finds the curve of his neck. We breathe, not in rhythm, not in control, just together. His lips brush the hollow below my ear. "I'll stop if you tell me to," he says, barely more than breath. I shake my head. "I won't say it," I whisper. "I've said no to myself long enough." Then it happens. Not rushed, not frantic, just full. Of pressure, of silence, of hands moving like they've waited 1,000 nights, of breath that starts shallow and ends in gasps. His mouth finds mine, slow, deep, careful. His fingers grip my back like he's afraid I'll vanish. My body arches into his without shame. No words are said after that, just soft sounds. My name, once, whispered like a prayer. My gasp, when his hand found the base of my spine. Everything blurred, my robe forgotten, his shirt crumpled, the couch creaking beneath us. But it didn't matter, because in that moment, I wasn't someone's partner. I wasn't anyone's anything. I was just wanted. When it was over, I sat curled against his chest. His fingers stroked my shoulder slowly. My breathing was uneven, my skin damp, my thoughts silent. And yet one sentence echoed in my head. "You crossed it, not a line, a boundary, one I can't uncross." He kissed the top of my head. "I'm not sorry," he whispered again. Neither was I, but I was terrified. The next morning, I expected to wake up drowning in shame, to feel sick, dirty, to cry in the shower and swear it was a mistake I'd never make again. But that's not what happened. I woke up to the smell of coffee. Jake had made a pot. He was in the kitchen, humming again, like nothing was broken. And maybe that's what scared me most. I stood at the top of the stairs, robe tight around my waist this time. My heart thudded in my chest. His father was still asleep. The door to our bedroom was closed. The house was split in two, my old life behind one door. And whatever this was, standing in my kitchen, barefoot, pouring cream into coffee mugs. When he saw me, Jake didn't flinch, he didn't smile, didn't act coy, he just nodded. "Morning," he said gently. "Coffee's fresh." Like we hadn't just crossed a line that should have shattered the walls. I walked to the sink, my fingers trembling as I rinsed a glass. "I can't think straight," I whispered, without looking at him. He came closer, not touching, just near. His presence, warm and steady, made my throat tighten. "I'm not asking for anything," he said softly. I needed you to know it meant something." My breath caught again. He kept saying the right things, and that terrified me. But the guilt didn't claw at me like I thought it would. Not that first day. It came in quieter forms, like the way I flinched when my partner kissed my cheek after work, or the way I couldn't meet my own eyes in the hallway mirror. And when I heard Jake's footsteps upstairs later that night, light, careful, familiar, my stomach twisted, not with regret, with craving. I sat on the edge of the bed and folded laundry while my partner snored beside me. I could feel my chest tightening, my thoughts spinning. I wasn't afraid of what I had done. I was afraid of what I wanted to do again. Because that touch, his mouth, his hands, his breath on my skin, it haunted me, not like a nightmare, like a memory I didn't want to let go of. And that was the worst part. Not the guilt, but the absence of it. It didn't stop at once. You'd think something that wrong would end with panic, with shame, but it didn't. Not for me, because after that night, everything felt sharper. Colors, sounds, even the feel of air against my skin. I was alive in a way I hadn't been in years, and I hated how much I needed it. We didn't talk about it, not directly, but the tension between us curled around everything. One night, he passed me the salt at dinner and let his fingers brush mine. Too long, too softly. His father didn't notice, but I did. My heart flipped in my chest. Another night, Jake came into the laundry room just as I bent to pick up a dropped towel. I straightened quickly, and he froze, then stepped back without a word. But in that single second, I felt everything again. The weight of what we'd done, and the ache of wanting it again. I started locking the bathroom door when I showered, not because I was scared he'd come in, because I was scared I wanted him to. One morning, my partner looked at me across the breakfast table and said, "You seem different lately, softer, like you're glowing or something." I nearly choked on my tea. Jake didn't look up from his phone, but I saw the corner of his mouth twitch. That moment nearly broke me. I'd become good at pretending, at smiling, at folding sheets and stirring soup like everything was normal. But inside I was unraveling, one thread at a time. And then came the moment I couldn't lie anymore. It was a Tuesday, late afternoon. I was in the bedroom, folding his father's clothes, when I heard voices outside the door. I froze. Jake's voice, low, calm, and a woman's, laughter. Light and flirty, I walked to the hallway. He was at the front door, saying goodbye to someone I'd never seen before. She was young, pretty. Her hand lingered on his arm. He didn't stop her. And when the door closed, he turned and saw me standing there. We both froze. "I didn't think you were home," he said. I tried to speak, tried to act normal, but something inside me cracked. I didn't have the right to be angry, but I was. Not because I loved him, but because I'd let myself believe. Maybe he loved me. That night, I didn't sleep, because I wasn't afraid of what I'd done. I was afraid of what I'd become. And I knew, sooner or later, someone was going to find out. A True Infidelity Story, Ladora 70. It happened in the most ordinary moment. I was pouring coffee. The sun had just come up. Birds chirped outside the kitchen window. Jake was upstairs. His father was in the shower, and I was thinking about the way Jake's hands had trembled the last time we touched. Then the voice came, quiet but cutting. "How long has it been going on?" I dropped the mug. Ceramic shattered. Coffee bled across the tile like something wounded. My daughter stood in the kitchen doorway, hands folded across her chest, eyes locked on mine. Not angry, just knowing. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. "I'm not stupid, Mum," she said. I felt my knees threaten to give. My stomach twisted. She looked toward the stairs, then back at me. "I always wondered why you smiled more when he was around." She sat down at the table like she hadn't just ripped open my entire world. "I don't care," she said softly. I blinked. "What?" She looked at me, almost sadly. "I didn't want to marry him anyway. Jake, I didn't love him." The floor shifted beneath me. She laughed, bitter, distant. "I knew there was something between you two, I just didn't want to admit it." I sat across from her, gripping the edge of the table like it could save me from drowning. "I didn't mean for it to happen," I whispered. She nodded. "I believe you." Then she stood. "You should tell Dad." And with that, she walked out. No screaming, no accusations, just that strange, quiet mercy. I stayed frozen for what felt like hours. When Jake came down, I didn't look at him. "We need to stop," I said. He stood still. "I know," he replied, "but that doesn't mean I'll stop wanting you." I didn't respond, because I felt the same, and I hated that I did. A True Infidelity Story. Ladora 70. The next morning, he was gone. No note, no goodbye, just gone. His room was empty, the bed neatly made, his favorite sweatshirt still hanging on the chair, like he left it there on purpose, like he knew I'd walk in, touch it, and ache. And I did. I stood there, wrapped in my robe, staring at the hollow where he used to sleep. The silence screamed. I called him once. Straight to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. What would I have said? "Come back. Thank you. Please don't disappear, not like this." No. The silence would have to speak for both of us now. When his father came home that evening, he barely noticed. He thought Jake had just gone to stay with a friend for the weekend. I nodded, smiled, pretended. Because what else was left? That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The room was cold. The sheets felt too tight around my legs, and everything smelled like nothing. I closed my eyes, trying to forget the way Jake's hands once held me like I was something delicate, not breakable, precious. I remembered his voice when he whispered, "I'm not sorry. Neither am I." Even now, even with him gone. The next week, my daughter called again. We spoke carefully, like two people standing on a frozen lake, unsure where the cracks would start. At the end of the call, she said, "You're not the villain, Mom, but you're not innocent either." I stared at my reflection in the microwave door for a long time after that. Because she was right. Some nights, I still hear his voice, feel the weight of his palm on my lower back. The slow ache of wanting something I was never supposed to touch. The warmth of being seen, the grief of being left behind. And when I think about him walking out that door, before I could ask him to stay, before I could lie again and say it wouldn't happen again, I wonder if he did it to protect me or to protect himself. Maybe both, but this is the truth I carry. I crossed a line I can't uncross, and even now, I don't want to, because for one night, I wasn't forgotten. I wasn't invisible. I wasn't just his father's partner. I was wanted, and I don't know if I'll ever feel that again.